Hello and welcome to the 2023-24 Premier League season review. We will also be touching on Champions League final coming up between Dortmund and Real Madrid. Can Real Madrid win their 15th title, which would be insane? We'll also be covering the Euros, Southgate, who's he going to be taking and who's he not going to be taking on the plane to Germany for 2024. I want to say that I won't be covering all the Premier League teams. Teams such as Luton, who might deserve to be covered, just don't have the time to cover them, but they have had interesting Premier League seasons. But without further ado, let's get into this. Let's talk about Everton, and specifically, there's one big cloud looming over Everton this season. It has to be the points deduction in November. It was a 10-point deduction, appealed down to 6, and then they have had a further 2 points taken off them last month, all for financial fair play, for profit and sustainability. Does this ask questions about City, Chelsea, some of the other teams in the league? I think it does, but you cannot mistake the job that Sean Dyche has done at Everton. Brilliant manager at Burnley, gets a bit of reputation for being a Brexit manager. He's not a simple manager. He just uses what he has at his disposal, and I think once Everton get a bit more settled, he's got them out that relegation little worry now. They would actually be comfortably just above Fulham in 13th without the points deduction, which is a pretty good season for Everton. They'll be looking to push on. This is probably one of the more impressive sides we've seen since Don Carlo took over Everton briefly. Weird stint. But it has been an impressive season. We've seen second most Premier League clean sheets. Jared Brandthwaite, breakout season, possibly with a move to United soon. But one of the mainstays I want to say for Everton this season, it has to be Dyche. I've been really impressed with Dyche. Little shades of Eddie Howe. The Bournemouth to Newcastle is a little bit similar to the Burnley to Everton. Maybe not as much money at the at Everton as the Howe has at Newcastle, but it's a hard-working team, and it's a team with talent in it, as Brandthwaite has proven. Dominic Calvert-Lewin after coming back from injury as well. So I think it's been an impressive season from Everton, who are regarded to be one of the worst run clubs in the Premier League. So I think Dyche has done a really good job at Everton, and I think there's a lot to be proud of as an Everton fan. So it could be a lot worse, especially where we've seen Everton in the last few seasons sort of around relegation. So I would say it's actually quite a positive season for Everton and Dyche. Speaking about Eddie Howe and Newcastle, brilliant end to the season from Newcastle, pushing up to, I believe they're in 6th now, which we were worried they were in mid-table. There was lots of talk about Newcastle can't replicate what they did. 4th, they dropped out of the Champions League. But an impressive win over PSG, showed a lot of spirit there. There's a lot for the fans to remember. It's their first time back in the Champions League. Oh, I don't even know when. I don't know the stat for that. It's been that long, and the fans will appreciate Eddie Howe for that. I think everyone can agree that 4th was a little bit of an achievement, and there has been a couple of big name signings try and push them on this season. They've had problems with injuries, riddled with injuries throughout the squad. They must be touching FFP. There's talks about Isak having to go, links with him at Arsenal. He's had a brilliant season, and he's up for Player of the Year, Premier League Player of the Year. He's had a really good season at Newcastle, but they may have to see him go, may have to see Guimaraes go, someone like that, to cover their FFP tracks. Because although Newcastle have all this money to spend in the world, they do have to abide by the laws of the Premier League. Unless your name's Man City, but I will stop mentioning that at some point. I think there are definitely similarities between what we've seen at Eddie Howe and this Newcastle side. As I said, hard-working side, to an early Liverpool Klopp. There are lots of similarities to be made there, and as I say, some really impressive seasons. We've seen Anthony Gordon come through and be impressive after a somewhat unstable start. I don't think the fans took to him that well. Isak's gone over 20 goals this season, about 100 minutes a goal, which is really impressive. They've done all of this push without Joe Willock for long parts of the season, and without Joe Linton for long parts of the season. Kieran Trippier's been out injured a few times, and I think these are really key injuries, especially in the middle of the park. These are players that help bring a lot of energy. I say Willock and Joe Linton are the two most mobile midfielders that we see for Newcastle, and without them I think they can struggle a bit, especially with the intensity that they like to play with, this gegenpress. That I think it's actually been a pretty good season for Newcastle. Fourth was an overachievement last year, as I said, and I think pushing and getting Europe again, getting the money in for Europe will help with their FFP. We'll see what the transfer window brings for them, but I think it has been a very positive year for Newcastle. Talking about sides that wanted European football and will be getting European football, but not quite the European football they expected, Spurs. On for a title challenge at the start of the year under Ange Postecoglou, who's done a great job there. Been figured out a little bit in recent weeks, but it's been a great season for him. A bunch of new signings, Doge, Van der Ven, Vicario, Maddison, all coming through and looking brilliant for the Spurs sides for spells of this season. I think the new style that they've implemented with the high fullbacks, the interchanging triangles, it's very Pep-esque. Not quite similar, it's not quite the same system that Pep runs. Obviously there are subtle changes, but he's definitely from that Pep school of philosophy. Really high line that's been talked about a lot this year. It's been found out a little bit. Stop! And through the power of editing, I haven't forgot the points I was going to make about Spurs, which is that they are currently third in short passes in the Premier League, behind real sort of short passing nerds of Brighton and Man City, but they are stone rank last when it comes to long passes. Is this why they've been caught out in recent weeks? I would maybe like to think so. The insistence of playing short that Postecoglou does has been found out in recent weeks. A lot of the teams have been sitting very narrow against them, and they've been struggling to get past that. I also want to mention quickly that Adoge is up for Young Player of the Season. Testament to Spurs and a testament to him. He's had a brilliant season. Okay, you can go back. I think we have to give Postecoglou credit for doing this all without Kane. Such a talisman for Tottenham coming through. Guarantees you nearly 30 goals a season. And it was only really a sort of player that Spurs would ever get through their academy. And he's done it all without Kane, and that's been absolutely brilliant. Lloris has just dropped out and replaced immediately with what I would think a better goalkeeper, to be honest. I was never much of a Lloris fan. I think we also have to talk about the fact that Klopp and Arteta both finished 8th in their first year. Klopp on 60 points, Arteta on 61. I think Postecoglou's going to do better than this. He's almost definitely going to finish 5th. And I think if you break it down like that, it has actually been quite a good season for Spurs this year. I think it will feel a little bit bitter in the same way that Arsenal's run last year. It was a really good run, but they wanted to go for the title because they were leading the Premier League for so long. I think Spurs will feel a similar bitterness this year from such a successful start to the year. It's crumbled away a little bit, but I think there are a lot of positives for Spurs to take forward this year. Now, jumping not very far at all from Spurs to this club right here, to Arsenal, who've had an outstanding season, both defensively and offensively. Brilliant signings brought in. Declan Rice has been a star for them. 4 players, including Rice himself, up for either Young Player or Player of the Year. So it really has been an exceptional year for Arteta's men. Arteta has really brought along, as well as Pep, this 4 centre-backs or 3 centre-back philosophy. This is a big Arsenal team now. They are probably one of the tallest teams in the Premier League. We're seeing this from a lot of the top sides now. Set pieces have taken on a real form of their own. 22 set pieces, that's 4 more than the next Everton in the league, and it's really been a consistent source of goals for Arsenal. 2 in the North London derby fairly recently over Spurs, and it's really been an incredible year. I would like to say that I don't think we should be throwing the term bottle jobs around. I think the bottle job last year was definitely a bottle. Liverpool's this year was a bottle. But if Arsenal don't go on to win the title this year, I don't think we can call it a bottle. It has been an exceptional second half to the season run that Arsenal have done, and they just have to keep on the heels of Man City and hope that they slip up. But overall, great year for Arteta. It's been a great set of performances from Arsenal. We've seen stellar performances from Saka, who's been a little bit hot and cold this season, but it's still a great season stats-wise. Ødegaard has been sensational. Rice has been a revelation, as I've said. We've seen it's probably the best centre-back pairing in the league with Gabriel and Saliba, and this team is so young, and it will go on to achieve a lot, I am sure. David Raya moving in instead of Ramsdale, a controversial move, but I think Raya has always had that little bit extra quality. Claims close crosses, and he doesn't quite have the mistakes in him, apart from that Luton away fixture that Ramsdale seems to have. So I think it's been a really, really positive year for Arsenal. Even if they don't go and win anything, it'll be coming soon, especially if they can get someone like Isak or Tony through the window. Okay, so I did get a Arsenal fan to answer the questions as well. So we dropped some unneeded points this year. We still had games where our toughness didn't look like champions. I think Arsenal fans are very worried about this. The years before, where Arsenal haven't had the steel that they've needed to in midfield, we've looked very like we're pushovers. Big results have gone against us. We've had drummings by Chelsea, Man United, and the steel has been added to this Arsenal team now, but there is still glimpses of that. The bottle jobs, there's not quite the character to get there yet, and I think there is a worry for that for Arsenal fans. We scored a lot of goals and defended really well. Biggest disappointment this year, though, has to be Fabio Vieira for Joe, and I have to agree. Signing from Porto, big player, big money, not quite the delivery for Fabio Vieira, it has to be said. There was a lot of hope for Fabio Vieira at times at Arsenal, and he's never really kicked on. He's not massively earned the time at Arsenal that fans were expecting, and he was really expected to fill in roles for Martin Ødegaard. But I have to say that I think the fans would be pretty worried if Ødegaard got injured and Vieira tried running that midfield, because their quality gap is quite a big one. And Joe's favourite player is Martin Ødegaard. To line up with that, Ødegaard has been sensational this season, running games from start to finish. His close control, his passing, his vision, his late runs into the box, the amount of times we've seen cutbacks on the edge of the box, and Martin Ødegaard is coming in across the box and he just sweeps it into the corner. He really has been sensational for Arsenal this year. Joe's signing for Arsenal this year is Martin Zubimendi from Real Sociedad, a holding midfielder that he hopes will allow the likes of Declan Rice to go forward more and possibly see a little bit more from Thomas Partey. I think this would be a great signing for Arsenal, and he's a player of real talent, and the amount he could learn from this squad and grow from this squad would be sensational. Going over to the blue side of London, we have Chelsea. Todd Bowley's men have front-loaded investments. They are so close to FFP in an effort to boost this squad. and it hasn't really gone to plan, but one man who has been performing over his XG this season is Cole Palmer. 31 appearances, 21 goals and 9 assists. He's been a revelation. Others like Petrovic, Gallagher and Malo Gusto have also had impressive seasons as Chelsea have looked to kick on in this second half and push for European football. Midway through the season for Chelsea, XG actually had them in 5th, so it feels like the squad are at some points underperforming. They've been underperforming goal, they've been able to keep the ball pretty well. A lot of the stats, when you seem to look at it for Chelsea, seem to be pointing them to be a pretty good side. So is it the players that's letting them down? Where is it all going wrong? Injuries have stifled their season somewhat. They have had a horrid time with injuries up and down the squad. Sterling hasn't quite performed as well as he would want to, especially for the money that he's on. I think Chelsea are going to maybe struggle to sell a lot of these players who are on higher wages, who are on really long contracts, and it will be interesting to see just how much they can really do in the transfer market to get themselves and get Pochettino to get them where they want to be. It's a lot of investment from Chelsea in their effort to get Champions League football. We maybe see it in the next couple of years, but at the moment it is slow progress for the Blues. But I'd say it's been a somewhat positive season for Chelsea and Chelsea fans. I think nobody expected Chelsea to really do that much this season, and they have had an impressive finish to the season, which will leave some hope with fans, especially if they can get European football. There are some positives to be taken. Yes, it's not the jump that they wanted from the investments that they've had, but it is a start. Is Pochettino still the right man for the job? I don't know, but I think there are definitely positives to take from this season, although not overly positive season for Chelsea. Now, I did do a small survey for some of the fans and some of the clubs with a few of my friends who've been following the clubs because they know things more than I do. Now, I do have a couple of questions I asked about Chelsea. I'll be reading from this, and it's one of the questions is, what went well and what didn't go well for your team this season? So this is Anakin, he's a Chelsea fan. So he says, the development of players and the improvement of the squad seems good, did well in cup competitions, and the players look more settled with the manager and the club. A lot of the players, I think, responded well to a lot of unjust criticism. Also, things that went wrong is consistency. Players losing a lot of confidence, some questionable decisions by Poch at times, and the world's worst medical department. I can't speak for the medical department of Chelsea, but I have been riddled with injuries. Maybe sending players back at the wrong times have stifled their season, and players getting re-injured. Reece James, we've seen that a lot, getting re-injured. Maybe he's coming back too early, so maybe he has got a point there. Realistically, we haven't seen Poch's preferred starting 11 yet. Overall, we've been very entertaining to watch this season, win or lose. And it's better than the shit show last season. So, positives to take, as I say. I went on to say, what was your favourite player this season? And I think that's really obvious for Chelsea fans this season. He says Cole Palmer, Gusto a close second. But it has to be Cole Palmer. How brilliant has he been this year? It's very hard to pick. For disappointing players, he says, there's too many. As much as I want to say injured players, it feels a little unfair, so I'm going to say Sterling, he says, for his most disappointing player of the season, with Mudryk a very, very close second. And I have a second participant for Chelsea as well, Dom, who says, it's a very mixed season for us. Reached a cup final and a semi-final, challenging for 6th place, but overall I'd say it's been a positive year. There's been a massive improvements in our performance since the beginning of the season, and hopefully we can build more next season. He says, favourite player has undoubtedly have to be Cole Palmer. There you go. It's the obvious choice for a Chelsea fan. He has been a bright light in a pretty dark chasm at times this year. He's carried Chelsea this season in terms of goals and assists, with an honourable mention of Conor Gallagher, Dom says, who's been played very well on and off the ball for us this season. Most disappointing player has to be Sterling, so there's another vote for Sterling. He's on big wages. He was a big signing from City, done well at City, and he's just never really kicked on. We could be seeing him in the MLS or Saudi soon. You'd expect a lot more from someone of his experience and on his wages. Now, I did ask both of them who they wanted to sign, and Dom says, not sure who I'd want to sign next season. Chelsea without a proper number 9 and also like a goalkeeper. I would love to see someone like Ollie Watkins, Tony or Osimhen up front for Chelsea next season. So there's some big names there, and that'd have to be big money for Chelsea. Can they afford to do that? Who knows? Champions League, Villa. Love to hear it. Aston Villa have been a revelation this season. Unai Emery has really tightened up this Villa side and made them really hard to beat. Building out from the back like a lot of the big sides, but without keeping up any of the chances of some of the biggest ball playing sides. If you look here, you will see that Aston Villa have only given up 4 chances from loss of possession, 4 shots. Whereas a lot of the big ball playing sides in the Premier League that you see here have struggled. They've given away more chances. Players that have been going well this season, Ollie Watkins up for player of the season. He's been a revelation in front of goal this year. They also have one of the best home records in the Premier League, really taking that, put your home as a fortress, play from your own stadium and make it guaranteed points, and it's something that they've used really well this season. Other standout performers, we've had Douglas Luiz, Emi Martinez has looked exceptional since the World Cup and leaving Arsenal. We've had Diaby and Leon Bailey with bits of brilliance in this Villa side. It is an exciting time for Villa, but can they deal with the Champions League football, or are we going to see a sort of repeat of the Newcastle Champions League era? Only time will tell for Villa and Emery, but we will see. Manchester City. They are the mentality monsters of the Premier League. Even with De Bruyne out for half the year, Haaland was on shaky-ish form for a while. Up steps Foden, up steps Alvarez, up steps Rodri. They are stacked from head to toe. Pep just puts the squeeze on the rest of the Premier League, and it's whether your club can take it to see if you can challenge for the title. They are dominant this year. Obviously, multiple players up for player of the year and young player of the year. I think we're looking at De Bruyne, who has been out for half the season and still put up some of the most insane assist figures for this year. Rodri, we're looking at as probably one of the best DMs in the world. No, the best DM in the world. Foden has come into his own this year, really bringing on the message that Pep said, that he was one of the best young players. He's the best young player Pep's seen, and he's been nurtured into the squad, and he's really starting to thrive now. I think we'll see Phil Foden become probably one of the most iconic players in the Premier League over the next few years. He has been outstanding and a stellar performer this season. We're sort of running out of things to talk about with Pep in the Premier League. Obviously, we have to talk about, is this tainted by the 115 or so charges that Pep is facing and City are facing. But even without that, this is a stellar side. Yes, they got knocked out in the Champions League to a Real Madrid side that basically just hid and hoped and waited out the game. Yes, they won. Yes, that may have been the right thing to do at the time, but City are terrifying to play against. Even teams who've done well against them this year, Arsenal who've done well against them, two pretty boring games, closed down, closed off. We saw Arsenal doing very similar things to Real Madrid, sitting up at the Etihad, sitting compact, deep, trying to hit out on a counter. And it's really the only way to take on City, because you cannot take them on at their own game, because they will dismantle you. It has been a brilliant year from City. Obviously not up to the heights of the treble, but it's still a very good season, and they probably will go on and gain the Premier League title. So what can we say? It's been a stellar season from City. Yes, it's not at the same heights, but it still should be 2 trophies for City this year, which is outstanding. They are top of the league table for possession by some distance. They control and just squeeze teams out of games. I do not see them dropping points, especially Spurs was meant to be the hope for plenty of weeks, but I don't think they will be anymore. They're in a tough section of the season themselves, and a tough run of form. So it's all down on Fulham, really, and as an Arsenal fan, I am not looking forward to it. I think this will be another year for City, but it's all if Pep stays after all these charges. Who knows? We can only hope. City are kind of making the Premier League boring. I think in a way, this would be, I think, their 5th title in a row, or 4th title in a row, I will say in the edit. And that is a record over Man United if they win it this year. It has really been just dominance from City. This is the same sort of dominance that we've seen from PSG, that we are sort of seeing from Real Madrid, from Bayern Munich up until recently. It's becoming really dominant in this league, and they are quite leagues ahead of some of the other teams in the Premier League. It's very impressive from Pep. And it's been another stellar season. I don't think you can complain if you're a City fan at all. It's been a great year. Unfortunate in the Champions League, but you can't win them all. You can't even win them all last season, even though you won the treble. No one's done the quad, but it's close as damn it. City had a brilliant year. Moving on to one of City's biggest rivals over the last few years, we're going to be talking about Liverpool. It has been a huge year for Liverpool. Jurgen Klopp announced that he's going to leave, possibly a few big players to leave with him. Arne Slot looks like he's almost certainly going to slip in after Klopp's left. Bit toothless up top, which we've not seen from Liverpool recently. Salah is down on his expected goals, although his expected assists are higher than they ever have been before, interestingly enough. Gakpo and Nunes have been part of a Liverpool front line who have looked toothless in front of goal, have underperformed on XG, and throughout crucial parts of the season, Liverpool's midfield couldn't capitalise and bring the goals from there, and Liverpool struggled out of matches. It's been a year of turning it on in the second half, and it reminded me a lot of Arsenal last year. You can only run that look for so often and come back so many times. You need to be able to control games, and that's what we see at the top level now, is being able to control a game all the way through. So although this has been a disappointing year for Liverpool, we can look forward to the future and to Arne Slot, who's coming in from Feyenoord. And again, he is another manager coming to a big club who is a Pep Cruyff disciple. He believes in being able to control games. He's a little bit more of a see chances, take them. He will not pass the ball around to the same level of an Arteta or a Pep. So there is a little bit more there, familiarity there for Liverpool fans, of taking the shots when taking them. Because Liverpool have high possession percentages on average. And I think that with Arne Slot, he's had classe from Feyenoord, who was traditionally a 5'6" centre mid, playing centre back. We've seen this with Pep and Kovacic against Arsenal to add that extra element of control, and I think that having this extra element of control will see Liverpool dominate games possibly more and create more chances if they can buy the players in the summer who can finish off those chances or keep Jota fit. We could be seeing still an impressive Liverpool, but it will be a big ask when maybe Van Dijk, maybe Salah, some big names will be leaving this year. So can he keep Liverpool where they need to be to challenge? Now, I have got a Liverpool fan who have asked the same questions too, so we will have a little look at his answers. So we're looking at Oren's answers here, and he says that my manager left the club and couldn't seem to switch it on until the second half, and we had a striker with 67 shots and 2 goals. And he's talking about Nunez's recent run of form, and it has been a really poor run of form. And Salah as well has underperformed XG, and it's really choked them out in this second half of the season. And I think this hurt is quite raw for Liverpool. They wanted to leave Klopp with the quadruple. We had Trent saying that he wanted to bring the quadruple in for Klopp. So it's a very disappointing year this year for Liverpool. He says he wants to sign Kvaratskhelia from Napoli. So Kvaratskhelia could definitely add a bit of XG and XA into the conversation and maybe boost Liverpool's goal threat, which would be good. He says McAllister has been his favourite, and I would completely agree with him. Alexis McAllister has been a very, very big part of Liverpool's title run this season. He has run games from start to finish and looked exceptional doing it. He's been a real sensation since his move from Brighton and winning the World Cup. And I think he's possibly one of the best midfielders in the Premier League at the moment. There's nothing more to say. And I have to say, he says Nunez was the biggest disappointment, and I think is a lot of hurt for Liverpool fans this year for Nunez up top. Big money signing, has looked promising in lots of ways. He presses well, he causes a nuisance, he just can't get his shooting boots on. He has the hallmarks of a very good striker, he just can't quite get his finishing boots on. So it has been an unfortunate year for Liverpool, only leaving with a Carabao Cup. Maybe next year, Liverpool. Arne Slot, you've got a lot to do, but we'll move on to the next team. On to the other big northern red side, Manchester United, who have had a shocking season, riddled with injuries, especially in defence. Man United have looked shocking at some points in this season, especially at 4-0 to Palace. If you look at the lineup here, it's really not good. And the problem with this lineup is with Casemiro and Evans not playing enough football, and Casemiro in here, the quality is not there. Casemiro diving in, leaving Evans a lot to do, Dalot trying to push further up, Wan-Bissaka is not the player that Man United need. And a lot of the time, this lineup have midfielders who want to push forwards, and they push forwards, and Mainu and Eriksen will push forwards, Mount wants to push forwards, and it leaves a chasm of space in the middle of the field that we've seen exploited by team again and again. And Palace did this too. Palace are a quality side in the second half of the season. They have quality. Elise, Eze are going to really go at teams, and we saw this again. And Man United seem to have a complete hole in the middle of their midfield. Casemiro isn't going to fill this hole with his poor form recently, and injury after injury have seen Man United have a really poor season. Is it time for Ten Hag to go? Who can they get to replace him? I don't know, but Man United have a lot of answers this season. Sorry, a lot of questions this season, but not many answers. So maybe next season they can bring in some signings and we can see a move on from there. But I don't know, it's not looking good if you're a Man United fan, and I think has gone on too long for a club of this stature to still be in the post-Fergie slump. It's been run after run of poor players signings, poor management. A lot of people blame the owners. They blame the Glazers, but honestly, you've spent some of the most money in the Premier League over the last 10-15 years, so I'm not sure if it is the owners. I think it's just a poorly run club at this point. Fingers crossed for Man United fans next season, but this season it really did not go to plan. Kobbie Mainoo has been nominated for Young Player of the Year. Whether you want to see him there or not, and does he deserve to be there, is another question. He has had a brilliant breakout season. He's broken into the England squad. And he is a shining light in a pretty dim Man United side at the moment. So there is hope for you Man United fans out there, and Kobbie Mainoo is some of that hope for you guys. So at least you have Kobbie Mainoo. So after all this Premier League review, I would like to go over what I think is wrong with the Premier League at the moment. Is the Premier League becoming more boring to watch? This is the question that's been bandied around over the last few months, and I think with exits of Balassi, of St Maximin, and replacements of Dwight McNeil and Anthony Gordon into these positions, we can see a lack of flair. It's almost like the Nike ad with the robots in it, the last game. Everything is stats and percentage based now. Retention of possession is key. You can't give it away with silly flip-flaps. It's almost seemed to become robotic football in some ways. And robotic team Man City are another reason that the Premier League is possibly becoming more boring. 115 charges, running so much money through the Premier League right in front of all the Premier League fans' eyes, and it seems to becoming a bit of a one-way show of just Man City money. We're seeing it with other sides in the Premier League. Supposedly we're cracking down, but Everton seem to be getting cracked down on more than anyone at this point. Also, clashes at the top of the table. Arsenal Man City have played twice this season. Two very boring games if you're a neutral fan. The 1-0 at the Emirates, deflected goal, very cagey, nothing particularly too open. We're not seeing the thrillers. At least Liverpool and Man City's styles matched up over the last few years to make some stellar games and some really interesting games. High scoring games, and we just aren't seeing this with this element of control that managers want now. The four centre backs that I have mentioned a couple of times, we're seeing Arteta running from left to right back now, Tomiyasu at left back, Saliba, Gabriel, and then Ben White in at right back, four basically centre backs. And Pep does the same now. We've got Guardiola at left back, who is basically a centre back, Ruben Diaz, John Stones, and maybe Kyle Walker at right back is probably the only true fullback in that lineup still. We still see Zinchenko every so often, but there's such an emphasis of Rodri and Rice as well, basically being able to fill that role of centre back, that we're almost lacking the creativity of even 10 years ago from fullback, where we saw teams like Everton with Leighton Baines and Coleman bombing up, providing attacking support, and it's all about that defensive solidity and height and power now. And all these things adding up to the Premier League becoming a little bit more boring. Maybe so, unfortunately. Now we are done with the Premier League, we are going to move on to the Champions League final coming up. It is confirmed, a Dortmund versus Real Madrid final. How exciting. As I said, 15th title Real Madrid are going for, which is insane. I think this would be Dortmund's second. And Marco Reus is the fairy tale that everybody is trying to go for. It would be sensational to see Dortmund and Reus lift this trophy, but I just don't see it. It is a real heart versus mind final, and I'm going to go with my mind. I just don't see the Don Carlo Champions League aura it's gonna prevail. The quality that Real Madrid have over Dortmund. Dortmund got very lucky. I believe that PSG hit the post 6 times in their last meeting. So I think with the quality of PSG putting them under the cosh, they got a little bit lucky with the result. I think Real Madrid are built on luck and chances, and they are built on making their own luck and driving through opponents in the Champions League. Now, if you do look at some of the last 5 Champions League finals, with being plenty of 1-0s in there, low scoring affairs, it's been a pretty dull time in the Champions League final, very cagey. Teams don't want to come out, don't want to come and play for and give up the title before they've had a chance at it. I think it will be a slightly higher scoring match. Everybody has shot down Dortmund this year and they've prevailed against every odds, but I just think this is a step too far. I think this is a hurdle too far, and I think on Ancelotti, Don Carlo will be picking up his 15th of the year. I'm going to give it to Real Madrid 3-1. So, sorry Dortmund fans. It's been a year of people going against you, but I am going to be going against you as well. I just don't see it happening for you this year, unfortunately. I would love to see Royce holding that Champions League trophy, but I think it's a pipe dream, unfortunately. So we move on to the Euros, a huge Euros for England and Gareth Southgate. Can we bring the Euros home 2024 in Germany? We'll see. I did ask everyone who I asked questions, what their Euros lineups will be, so we will look at that now. So if we look at Doms, we have in goal is going to be Pickford, then Trent, Walker centre back, Stones, Chilwell, then Rice, Bellingham with Palmer in at 10, Foden out on the left wing, Kane through the middle, and Saka on the right wing. Interesting lineup. There is this idea of Walker at centre back, but I think that would need to be in a 3 at the back. I think Walker would really struggle in a 4 at the back, and it would make us very volatile, especially putting him next to Stones. It would be an interesting time. I think Chilwell, Stones, Walker, Trent is possibly the most attacking back 4 I've ever seen, and we would get ripped apart constantly. So maybe not the idea there, but maybe it's better than Maguire, who knows. On to Oran's starting 11. We have Pickford in goal again, Chilwell again, Stones, Walker, Trent. So we're seeing that back 4 again. Is this something that England fans want? It seems very attacking and forward. Bellingham, Foden, Rice taking up the midfield. Sancho, Kane and Saka. So an interesting addition of Jadon Sancho there. Taking Dortmund to the UCL final. But is it enough? Has he seen enough game time? Is he really back to his best? Is he still got a little bit of that Man United Sancho in him? We don't know yet. Maybe given the last couple of games of the season, we'll carry on seeing him get better and better. If he can get fitter and fitter, maybe he does have a place on this Euros squad. And we move on to Anakin's lineup, and he says, as a statement, as much as some ballers miss out and Palmer isn't really an 8, I'm biased. Fair enough. Also, not sure about injuries for some players. I consider recent form. I thought about Mainu, but I reckon Southgate will pick something like this. So in goal, he's gone for Pickford, Shaw at left back, Stones, Maguire, Walker. Declan Rice in at holding, Palmer and Jude in front with Foden, Kane and Saka. Interesting. I think this is a solid back line. I think Shaw coming back from injury could be interesting. I don't know if he'll be available for the Euros or not. Has he had enough time under his belt this season? I don't know. We're all seeing Pickford in goal. I think this is the way to go. Stones has to play. Maguire, I think, is a decent England partner for Stones, and I think he does well. I think Kyle Walker's essential at right back. I think he's sensational, and I think he adds a real balance to this side. Chelsea fans are going to want Palmer to play, and I'm just not sure there's a space for him where Jude and Foden are better in that 10 role, and forcing him in at 8, I think it leaves a lot for Declan Rice to do in that midfield, but we'll see. I think Foden, Kane, Saka is a really solid front three though. And finally, on to Joe's starting 11 for England. We have Pickford in goal again, Shaw, Maguire with a question mark, Stones and Walker make up the back four, Rice, Bellingham, Gordon, Foden, Saka, Kane. So we're looking at a pivot of Rice and Bellingham with a 3 attacking midfield role of Gordon, Foden, Saka and Kane running in up top. He does say in the notes that Gordon is just for running, really. And finally, it is time for my England 11. I am going to go for Pickford in goal, Shaw left back, Stones at centre back, Maguire at the other centre back, Walker, Rice in the holding, Mainu and Bellingham, then Saka, Foden and Kane. I think this is the most balanced lineup that we can get. I think Mainu really deserves a chance and could thrive in that midfield. And I think this has to be somewhere close to what Southgate is looking at for this Euros. Now, I did ask the participants whether they thought Gareth Southgate was the man for the England job. 2 participants said that he wasn't, and that it was the squad that had brought him this far, a star-studded squad at that. And 2 of the other participants said that Southgate was the man for the job at this time, but he needs a result from this tournament, and it's really sort of running to time up for Southgate. And they also brought up the point that who else is there for England at the moment, and with no one else queuing up or seeing like a front running man for this England job, it's difficult to see who will replace Southgate if he does go. It is crunch time though for Southgate this year. He's got to get a result out here. Kane isn't going to last forever for this England squad, and after the disappointments of the last Euros, they really need to push for something special here. This really has to be England's time. Southgate has had a really poor run against some of the top 10 ranked sides. He has faced a top 10 ranked side 27 times in his tenure, and only 6 of those times has he got a result. This is not what we want to be hearing. It's England fans running into a pretty tight Euros. If we come up against sides like France, we need to be putting up a good fight, and I'm not sure Southgate is the man to be doing this. It's a lot of personalities in the squad. Can Southgate keep it together and get a result this Euros? I don't know. Running through some of the last results for the Euros, it is a similar story to the Champions League. Apart from the 4-0 drubbing of Italy that Spain managed in the 2012 final, it's been a cagey affair. Hopefully we can see some more goals in this Euros final, but I'm not sure. I think we will probably be seeing another cagey affair in the Euros final. And with that, that's the 2023-24 season recap come to an end. I do want to say just before the end that Bayer Leverkusen needs to be shouted out. Although I haven't done a Bundesliga segment, having them go on the 49 game unbeaten streak that they have, they reached the Europa League final, beating Bayern Munich for the first time in years, beating that Benfica, I believe it was Benfica, yes, Benfica's previous unbeaten run. It's really been an impressive season. We've seen some standout performances from Grimaldo, Frimpong, even Granit Xhaka going across from Arsenal. Florian Wirtz is going to be a big name this year. Tapsoba, these names are big names. Are we going to see them get picked apart like Ajax after that Champions League run? Who knows? Xavi Alonso take a bow though before we leave, because it really did deserve a mention. But that is all wrapped up, and we've gone over some of the more interesting teams in the Premier League. We've gone over Southgate, we've gone over the Euros, we're going over the Champions League final. It has been a stellar year of football, and we are very nearly at the end. Will Man City win the Premier League? Will they slip up? Can Arsenal jump in? Villa for Champions League. We have a Dortmund Real Madrid final. Who knows what's going to happen there? Maybe it's going to be 15 for Don Carlo, who knows, or Marco Reus lifting at the Champions League in Dortmund colours. What a fairy tale come true that would. Can England win the Euros and really try and repair those wounds of Italy 4 years ago? Who knows? But it has been a stellar 23-24 season, and I have enjoyed it thoroughly. Okay, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.